Welcome to this video on manual handling. What we're looking at in this video is when we have to manhandle loads or weights that are a lot heavier than what we're normally used to doing, using tools such as crowbars and pinch bars and so on. We have to consider safety, hands and fingers not getting trapped under heavy weights. What we're going to do is move this machine base that we've got here, show you how to move that along the floor using a few very basic and simple tools. Some of the tools that we have here are the timber wedges, also steel wedges or fox wedges as we call them, a hammer, crowbar, pinch bar, skates. You can see 3 skates there, 2 flat ones and 1 with a turntable on top, rollers, pinch bar, brush, timber chocks for putting underneath the load once we start to raise it off the floor. The hammer, of course, we need. First thing we're going to do is take a fox wedge and just try to put it under anywhere where you see a little bit of a gap, maybe on the base, between the base and the floor, so we can drive the wedge in, and that will start to raise the flat base up off the floor. Once we get it up a little bit, always follow it up with a few more wedges or chocks so that it doesn't, if it slips off one, it doesn't drop down onto the floor again and you have to start all over again. But what we're looking for is to get a gap big enough to get a crowbar, the toe of a crowbar in there, and then we can lever it over a piece of timber and raise it up and get a decent bit of height on it off the floor.
Keep that just in case his wedge comes out or something like that, you know. So if we put this under it.
So we're going to put down just a...
You might want that back there a bit. Okay, so we can
timber
put that
board.
away. See if we can get a crowbar under it and lift it.
And we'll lever the crowbar over that flat piece of timber and raise the base up off the floor, hopefully high enough to get maybe a roller under it or another piece of timber much larger. When we're pressing down on the crowbar, you notice here we're keeping an open hand. Keep your hands open rather than wrapping your knuckles or fingers around it. If the crowbar slips and you go crashing down, you drive your knuckles into the concrete, and that's going to result in a painful injury. Here we're getting a good piece of timber underneath it now. You see the flat open hand there. Just put that timber piece underneath. Keep an open hand on that too. Hasn't got his fingers wrapped around it. Using a pinch bar, just put it under, but you shouldn't wrap your fingers around the pinch bar either. But in this case, with the timber under, it's safe to do so. I'll just stop. Now we're going over to the rear. Going to put a wooden wedge underneath the back. If we just lift it up a little bit, then we can get a bit of room now to move around to the back with the crowbar and lift it up from the back end and get another substantial piece of timber or a roller in underneath that. So now we've got 2 rollers under it. These rollers that we're using are just galvanized pipe basically. They're more than substantial enough to hold the weight that we're dealing with. If we had a heavier weight, we could use heavier walled pipe such as steam piping. And if we had a heavier load still, we could use a solid steel bar. And that certainly wouldn't deform with the weight. And we can roll just the same as we're doing here. So extremely heavy loads could be rolled quite effortlessly along the workshop floor.
That's the
Just
way.
pressing down again
That's
to
good.
get some of the timber out from underneath it so that the base now is flat down on the rollers and ready to be moved along the workshop. We only use 2 rollers,
Okay,
as you can see there, so moving forward. In this case though, there's a timber wedge that's just got trapped underneath and no one has noticed it. So you can see that the weight's trying to roll up over that. And we're going to have to bring it back and get rid of that wedge and start moving forward again. So I got rid of the wedge, and you can see how the base pivots on one roller. Makes it very easy to manage. In some extreme cases, even one person could manage a load like this. It's better to have a bit of help though, just by using the pivot point and using 2 rollers. Put one under the front, move forward, it'll drop down onto that one, and then keep rolling until
That's it.
the middle roller comes out at the rear. And then we just pivot that again. It'll go down at the front.
That's it.
Take the rear roller out, put it to the front, pivot the weight again, or the base. And now, if you try using 3 rollers, it's not as efficient a way to do it because generally the base of machines are not level. So you find that 2 of the rollers do the work and the third one gets trapped underneath or skews underneath because there's no load on it or intermittent load on it. And then it skews up and gets jammed and causes you more problems. So 2 rollers are all that you require to do a very good and efficient and effortless job. Just moving along the workshop now, as you can see, and we just keep using the same system over and over again. And it's quite simple, quite straightforward, manageable, and gets the job done. Always think of safety though, always think where your fingers are. Because if that base comes down on your fingers, it's very unforgiving and it's going to give you a few problems. Problems that you can do without. Just for a little bit of forethought. So what we've been using here are the steel pipes, the rollers. Now we want to have a look at changing the rollers and putting skates underneath it. So this is the skate at the front there is the orange colored one. It's got a turntable on top. So we need to put that under the front in the center.
Okay. Yeah, good thinking.
Just doing the right thing there, putting a piece of timber on so that should that base come down now with his fingers in there, it's going to strike the piece of timber rather than his hand. So we drop the front part down onto the skate. And then we're going to lift the back. We're just putting a fox wedge under the front of the roller just to hold it in position.
Okay.
when we use a crowbar at the back, it doesn't start to run down or travel down the floor.
Okay.
Again, just using wedges and so on to keep the base up off the ground. Safety aspect as well. Letting the other two skates go on the two rear corners. And once we lower onto the skates, we should be ready to travel again. Now, to pull the skate along the floor, we can use something as simple as a sling and just wrap it around the front of the skate. We also need a hammer because the rear skates will tend to skew off to the side with uneven floors and different types of load being exerted on them. You see we just got a makeshift hook into the front of the skate in a sling. Somebody traveling along at the rear with a hammer just to tap the skates if he sees any movement on them to keep them tracking straight. Also, you don't want to travel too fast. Just nice and steady does it. If you get a bit of speed up and then something jams underneath one of the rollers, the whole thing will be on the ground before you realize. Now skates do come with a special handle, as you see here, which we can wrap around. Makes life a little bit easier, and we just pull along with that come-along handle. And that gets our load back to where we started. Now we're faced with the problem of getting it off here and back down onto the floor. So we're going to drop it down onto the rollers again first. Just putting a fox wedge at the back skates to lock them in place, stop them from rolling away from the crowbar.
Okay, good.
Lowered onto the roller. Just get rid of the wooden chocks. Roll forward over the pivot point of the roller. That should lift the rear end up and free the skates so we can take them out. Now if we just roll forward, we should be able to roll it forward onto the floor. Back to where we started.
Might have to hit her with a bit of speed. Good one.
And that's the job done. Thank Thank you for watching this video.